Good morning. Our scripture reading today is from first book of Timothy, chapter 2, verse 12. Again, that's 1 Timothy 2:12. And I do not permit a woman to teach or have authority over a man, but to be in silence.
I wonder how upset my dad is with me for making him say that one. What a thing to say, though, huh? You know what? Paul, he's a misogynist, right? What a bigot. Christianity believes that women should shut up and sit down, right? That's what it believes. Right there, right? Now, there's a problem here, because this exact same writer writes something else. In Galatians chapter 3, verses 24 to 29. Therefore the law has become our tutor to lead us to Christ, that we may be justified by faith. But now that faith has come, and we are no longer under a tutor. For you are all sons of God through faith in Christ Jesus. For all of you who were baptized into Christ have clothed yourselves with Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free man. There is neither male nor female. For you are all one in Christ Jesus. But if you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's offspring, heirs according to promise. Those two things don't really jive, do they? This is saying that there's women be quiet and there's almost a hierarchy. Where Galatians is the most egalitarian statement in human history to this point, and I'd say still the most egalitarian statement in all of human history. This statement here in Galatians screams to the world, there is no such thing as hierarchy before God. There's no Jew or Greek, so there's no special ethnicities or races, however you want to put it. There's no slave or free. There's no those who are better than others below them, and there's no male or female before God. The most egalitarian statement ever uttered. You know what the closest to this is in the world? Anywhere in the world. The closest statement to this is what Plato said about women, which is he believed that women should be taught. That's it. They can be taught and learned, and they can be used in governance merely as a practicality, really. He still absolutely believed that women were lesser people and were not as intelligent or as good as and useful as men. But he at least thought they could be taught. That's the best, most egalitarian statement you'll find anywhere in the world before Galatians chapter 3, verse 28. So what is going on here? Why is this misogynist gone crazy, or is the egalitarian gone crazy? Which one is Paul? Why does this writer contrast and contradict himself? Of course, it is a matter of roles and responsibilities that Paul is talking about in 1 Timothy. Not that women or men are better or less than each other. No, but they have different roles and responsibilities in this world. 1 Timothy is more about the function of the church on a day-to-day than set rules for life necessarily even. Although, we'll get into it. The women's instruction in 1 Timothy, the women's instructions are 7 verses. 7. And at face value in our society, from our point of view, they can look pretty bad, right? Of course, this is ignoring that at least 2 chapters in this exact same book are about how men are supposed to behave and act and what they're supposed to be trying to do. They're supposed to be trying to become overseers and deacons, aka bishops and or elders and deacons. What they're trying to become, and it's some pretty serious stuff. It's not easy. Here's the thing: we often in our world like to think of these that because men get to be up front and forward facing, that's better. It's not. it sucks. It kind of really can suck. And I'll get into why, but let's really quickly look in Genesis. And I bring this up because a few weeks ago, I broke down the fall of man in Genesis chapter 3. And this is kind of one of the points in which why I wanted to do that, is here in Genesis, when everything's said and done, God puts the punishment down upon Adam, Eve, and the serpent. And it's really, really important to look at the language. Because, again, this is also what Paul uses as justification for why he's saying this statement. To the woman, he said, in Genesis chapter 3, verse 16, to the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In pain you shall bring forth children, yet your desire shall be for your husband, and ye shall rule over you. Why does God give this? Because she was the one deceived. She got tricked. She gets punishment. That seems bad. Oh, it hurts to have children. You know what? Yeah, I've seen it a couple times now. It sure seems like it can suck. However, this is ignoring then what happens next, because look at that language. Look at that language God uses on Eve. Yes, it's punishment, but it's not strong language. It almost is more fatherly to their child, rather than what you get to the serpent and what you get to man. Because what does God say to man? Then to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife. Now, real important here. Remember, Eve was second. Adam was supposed to know more. And he did. He was the first one. He knew the rules already, and yet didn't chirp up and do anything. I said it before. Adam's not a good guy. Because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten from the tree which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Already that language is a lot stronger than anything he said to the women. He did the same thing to the serpent. He said, cursed are you more than all cattle. He curses the serpent and he curses Adam. Look at this language that God uses on Adam. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you. You shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, because from it you are taken, for you are dust. That seems almost insulting. I think God's a little upset with Adam at this moment. For you are dust, and to dust you shall return. We get it into our heads nowadays in our society that women get hit with everything. Of course, ignoring all the hits that men took as well. We both got hit. We both screwed up. Men and women. We both screwed up. Yes, women got deceived first, and so they get a punishment. Men also screwed up. Adam also screwed up, and so men get a punishment. It's called hard work, toiling, suffering, pain, and needing to break your back to feed your family. Before the fall, we didn't have to worry about those things. Life was easy. Adam didn't have to worry about those things. He could just eat and enjoy. As far as we could tell, there's no pain in the Garden of Eden. He didn't have to understand any of things. Now he does. Now he has to understand all those things and live in it. So Paul is looking to this moment in Genesis and saying there are consequences for the actions. Now, ladies, you are not Eve. Not a single one of you in here is Eve. You're right. You're not the ones who got deceived. That's fair. I'm not denying that. But I'm not Adam. No man in here is Adam. And we were not the ones who failed. And yet we also face the consequences. We also face the responsibility, the consequences of Adam's actions. You're not alone. You're suffering with Eve's consequences. Men are suffering with Adam's consequences. The point is this, why I'm bringing this up, is in our society, we have this massive push for something called the blank slate. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It's actually invented by John Locke and then pushed by writers like Karl Marx. Now there's much to this faulty idea, and it is faulty. But an important part of it right now, particularly being pushed, is the idea that men and women are identical and can basically do everything the other can. This is, of course, ludicrous. Men can't give birth. Men can't do a lot of things. And women can't do a lot of things men can do. You take the world's strongest man, the world's strongest woman, the world's strongest man is going to beat her every single time. It's just what it is. Here's the thing that we need to consider is that this is actually a good thing. Thank goodness we are not actually the same. But one of the biggest things about this is the idea of leadership. Like, I'm going to hammer on this. I'm actually not going to talk about our roles too much. I struggled with trying to find a title for this, and I just went with a word because I like one-word titles sometimes. But this blurring of the sexes has caused massive problems in our society, and one of the biggest is in leadership. Women and men look at leadership with envy. It is a desire that's what's great. The boss, his life's the best. Man, I want to be like that guy. I want to have that guy's job. Not once being honest about it. Because a good leader, his job sucks. It does. Because the buck is supposed to stop with them. They get the consequences. They are supposed to be the ones who suffer the consequences for their decisions. And this is even a biblical thing. Matthew 20, 26 to 27, and John 13, 13 to 15. These verses also show the responsibility of leadership. And if you want another egalitarian passage, John 13, 16 is also egalitarian, by the way. But these passages show that a leader must be last. You can't be first. You got to be the last one. Let's put it into a military perspective almost. You're the centurion's duty in the Roman military was to be the first one in the fray, and he was the leader, the centurion. He was supposed to be the first one in the fray and the last one out. That's why the rate of casualties in the centurion role was insanely high. It was the highest. No one died more than the centurion, because that was what they expected. You're the leader of these men. You're the first one into the fray. You're the last one out. These men are under your protection. They're going to listen to you, but the buck stops with you. And then there's the casualty of being a teacher as well. Hebrews 13, 17, but more pronounced, I would say. More pronounced is James 3, verse 1. If I can find it in my Bible here real quick. There it is. Let not many of you become teachers, my brethren, knowing that as such we shall incur a stricter judgment. That's part of leadership, is usually teaching. That's what I'm doing right now. And trust me, this verse scares me. It does. And anyone who wants to teach, it should scare them too. Because the penalty is harsher. Because if you screw up and you lie or you deceive or any of these things, you're going to be held extra responsible for it because you're the one who told others. Which is why, if I get things wrong, please tell me. Because I'm scared of that verse. I think rightly so. I mess up. I'm counting on all of you to help me out. And I'll correct it. That's important. Sorry, my son gave me a thumbs up and distracted me for a second. These are showing that when it comes to leadership, the buck stops with the leader. That's how it's supposed to work. Now, is there bad leaders who pass the buck and blame everyone else? Yes, of course, they're called politicians. But that's not how it's supposed to go. A good leader stands on what he does. I think of, many in here know of a gentleman. I'm not sure if I actually should use his name. His name's Jay. Many of you know him from before. He was a officer in the military. I remember talking to him about it once, because he was an officer. He was a commissioned officer, and he sent medics into the fray in Iraq. I remember asking him about it one time, and he told me how much he hated it, because he did not know if those men were coming back. Hopefully they were. And usually I think he had a pretty good rate. They did. But their deaths were on him, because he sent the orders. That's how he took it. I always thought that was a good showing of leadership. The men who died under his command were his responsibility. He sent them to die. That's how he felt. I felt that's what a good leader's supposed to be. So leadership is not all it's cracked up to be at times. We look at it with envy, but it's not so great that you actually really, really want it. We have men and women different roles. Paul in 1 Timothy is pointing out these different roles that men and women have in life. And guess what? Because we are different, men and women. Now, of course, you're going to have your outliers, but generally speaking, men and women are different. Is there maybe a woman out there who's stronger than me? Sure, yeah, absolutely. But I'm going to be stronger than most women. No offense, it's just how it is. Most women are a lot more empathetic and kind and forgiving than I am. And that's true of most men. They are. See, overall, genetics, personality, and physical attributes are distinctions. They're different. And here's the thing, that's wonderful. That's great. That's a good thing. We have our society trying to pull us apart and make us fight. Instead of focusing on that, yes, we are different, and thank goodness we are different because we make each other better. Men and women, particularly when you're joined in marriage. It is wonderful. We complement each other. We uplift and make each other better. It's a wonderful thing. It's incredible how God did that. He saw Adam in the garden, saw that he had no companions, and saw, nope, that's not good. Adam shouldn't be alone. He needs a companion. And so he made a companion that emphasized his strengths and minimized his weaknesses. Because that is what men and women do to each other. That is what we give each other. Yeah, one example to point out one is the raising of children. You know, typically, the men are the enforcers of the rules. You know, they're the strict ones. They create the understanding of society, if you will, to the children. That, hey, once you get out there, it's not a free-for-all, it's not an anarchy. There's rules. You do things, and there could be cops or consequences for your actions. The man typically is the one teaching that to the children through the enforcement of house rules. Well, the woman is, of course, the more nurturing, the safe harbor that children need, because they do need that comfort. They're still learning. They're still growing up. They need that comfort, and they have it in their mothers. They need both, the children. Now, we have these ideas about toxic masculinity and maybe even sometimes toxic femininity. And you know what? I think there's points to it at times. You know, one of the early feminist writers proclaimed that from men all the hate and evil and butchery and monstrous things that are in our societies come from men. And you know what? I think she's right. She's kind of right. Now, the thing is, if that's true, it's assuming one thing, is that men 100% control society, which when you look at history is not quite the case. Men do, mostly, but tons of women do. And it's mostly just a tiny portion of men and women who control society throughout history. But if we're going with that idea, then all the evils of history are on men, then so too are all the great things that are, from history are men. The fact that we will probably all of us go home today and we will not then go plow our gardens because we need dinner. We will not feed our cattle because we need to slaughter one for dinner. We can just go to the grocery store. Or maybe we even have a fridge that already has food in it. Hopefully. But these convenience, like I'm a gamer. I love video games. Imagine 200 years ago, actually, you can imagine 100 years ago, actually, the idea of entertainment in which you get to pretend to be a great knight or a mercenary in a cyberpunk city or whatever it may be. You get to do all these things and enjoy an entertainment factor unlike anything, immersive entertainment. I love it. Like I said, I'm a gamer. You didn't have that. That's through the inventions of men, if you will, if you want to take that feminist approach. Now, I think it's from the collective workings of both men and women. Together, we have strived throughout history in a world that hates us. A devil that hates us and wants to destroy us. It is together men and women that have made things better. That's what I'll say. Because, you know what? You can also have toxic femininity. You can also have, women are so, the amount of generosity, kindness, and forgiveness my wife has constantly astounds me. She's looking at me smiling right now. It does. Second chances are, particularly for men, usually something they don't necessarily want to give. But women sure want to. Here's the thing. That's a biblical thing. That's a good thing. Biblically, giving people second chances is good. How many times do you forgive people? 7 times 70 in one day. Women are really good at that. But then comes the other problem. When they forgive it too much, and they start letting themselves get taken advantage of. This also happens. I've seen it. Women are more inclined for that to happen. It can happen to men, absolutely. I've been scammed once or twice. But it's more, typically, women are a little bit more susceptible to it, particularly as we see nowadays with these criminals being constantly let out. Oh, they can reform and stuff. Well, no, sometimes they need the consequences of their actions. That is a quote-unquote toxic feminine side of things. Women have their bad sides too. Men have their bad sides? I agree. Yep, 100%. Women also have their bad sides. Here's the thing, when you pair us together and you stop the stupid fighting that people want, and it's because they want power and control over us, because they know united, we're unstoppable. As men and women, together, we are unstoppable. Because the weaknesses that men have are diminished by the love and kindness that women show. And the strengths that men have diminish the at times, I don't want to say naivete, because that's, I don't think, correct, but the over-loving at times, the over-forgiving at times that women can have. Men help mediate that, help stop that so they're not being taken advantage of. It's wonderful how together we are unified. We have different roles, but we are not unequal. We are equal before the sight of God. We just have different roles. Constantly, these verses and Paul is being used to say men are better, or look, see, Christianity believes men are better. Of course, forgetting Galatians. Men and women before God are not any different from each other. They are people, they're children of Him, who He loves both equally, and both sent His Son to die for every single one. As long as they'll take up their cross and follow Him, it doesn't matter. Men or women, Jew or Gentile, slave or free, it doesn't matter. All are equal before God. What an incredible thing to say. But we do have different roles. We do have different strengths that we must focus on and strive to preach and teach and fulfill the word with each other. It is good that we have each other. It is good we have different roles. I think a world full of men would be absolutely awful. It would. And I've kind of heard that statement. It's like, if the world was nothing but men, the world would be over. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I would say the same thing about women, though, to be honest. No offense. It's just true. When you get a bunch of women together, problems happen too. Just like you get a bunch of men together, problems happen. It's not any different. It's done in different ways, sure, but it's not any different. Both fall into these things. Both sexes have these issues. That's why together we complement each other so well. Even if it's not in marriage, just in the church, we can complement each other. We can add each other. Linda and I may have different strengths, but working together, we can make something incredible. We did, I think, a good job with that community day. So not even in marriage is that necessarily a thing, though it is in marriage, of course, but it can even be outside of marriage with brothers and sisters in Christ. As we get ready for our song here of invitation, our last song, We have different roles, but we need each other. In a beautiful union, we make a better world. As we stand and we sing as equals before God, we sing as those saved by Jesus, together, all of us. The world wants us to fight about the sexes. God says before Him, we are all equal. Let's focus on that. Yes, we have our strengths that make us different. But again, it's a good thing. Different roles, but nonetheless, we are equal. As we stand and sing, bind us together. Let us be bound together, knowing that we are all saved together by Jesus' blood. Thank you.